this video, we're going to continue our discussion of linear functions and linear graphing. Let's talk about the concept of slope. The slope of a line is the change in the y value divided by the change in the x value. So let's draw a little example here. So let's say that this is the line that we're talking about. The slope of this line will be the change in the vertical component, or y component, divided by the change in the x component. So the y is called the rise, for obvious reasons, because we're talking about going up and down. And the change in the x value is often referred to as the run, so that our slope, and we call the slope m, our slope is the change, and that's a lowercase delta, the change in y divided by the change in x, which is the rise over the run. And mathematically, we would say that the slope is the y value of point number 2 minus the y value of point number 1 divided by the x value of point 2 minus the x value of point 1. So let's find the slope of several pairs of points. So in our first example, we'll say that point number 1 is the origin 0, 0, and point number 2 is 3, 1. So that's telling us that x1 is 0 and y1 is 0, x2 is 3, and y2 is 1. So our slope is going to be, and I like to use parentheses because we are subtracting, and sometimes the signs can get a little messed up if we don't use parentheses. So if we take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we're going to get 1 divided by 3, or 1/3. So our first slope is 1/3. Now what this means is that it is going to rise 1 unit for each 3 units that it runs. So I would say that this is going to be 3 units to the right. Okay. So let's do another example. So point number 1 is going to be 6, 2. And point number 2 is going to be 3, -4. So our slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is -4, y1 is 2, x2 is 3, and x1 is 6. So we have -4 minus 2, which gives us -6, over 3 minus 6 is -3, so -6 divided by -3 is going to be 2. So our slope is 2. Now when we're first learning to work with slope, we might still think of this as a fraction, even though it really isn't. So this simply means, with a slope of 2, that we go up 2 units, and we go to the right 1 unit. Okay, let's try another one. So how about point number 1 being 1, 1, and point number 2 is going to be 4, 4. So our slope once again, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is going to be 4, y1 is 1, x2 is 4, and x1 is 1. So we are going to have 3 divided by 3, which of course is 1. But remember, we want to think about this, at least initially, as 1 over 1. So let's translate that into up 1 unit and right 1 unit. Okay. Now, let's take a look at another concept that says that we could take our linear equation, and here's our standard form for our linear equation. Our standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are integers. Okay. Now, if we take that linear equation and we put it in the form of y equals mx plus b, we are going to see that this is the slope-intercept form. So this is the slope-intercept form of a linear graph. And as we just saw, m is our slope, and b is going to be our y-intercept. In other words, that's where the line is going to cross the y-axis. So let's take a look at some examples. So example number 1 says if we have 2x minus 4y equals 8, let's put that into slope-intercept form. So we want to isolate y, in other words, get y all by itself. So let's subtract 2x from both sides. So that's going to leave us with negative 4y equals negative 2x plus 8. And then we have to divide everything by negative 4. So that's going to give us y. So negative 2 divided by negative 4 is positive 1/2. So that's going to give us y equals 1/2 x. And then we're going to have minus 2, because 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. So that tells us that our slope is 1/2, and b, our y-intercept, is at negative 2. So let's do another example. So if we had 3x plus 2y equals 6, then we can subtract our 3x from both sides, giving us 2y equals negative 3x plus 6. Then we divide everything by 2 in order to get y all by itself. So we're going to be left with y equals negative 3/2 x plus 3. So our slope is negative 3/2, and our y-intercept is going to be at 3. Let's do one more example. So if we have x plus 4y equals 2, we'll start out by subtracting x from both sides. So we have 4 times y equals negative x plus 2, and then we divide each term by 4. So we have y equals, well, negative x over 4 is the same thing as saying negative 1/4 x, and then 2 over 4 is 1/2. So our slope is going to be negative 1/4. And let's review once again what that actually means. That actually means that the slope of this line means that we go down 1 and to the right 4. and then our y-intercept is going to be at 1/2. So there is another video, a further look, if you will, at linear functions. Thank you for watching.